Hey DCC, welcome to another edition of Morning Coffee. And today I want to talk about a couple ways that our faith gets jacked up. So, one of the first ways is, a situation kind of goes against our human reasoning or our reasoning. A great example of this is you probably remember a Bible story about Peter, and he's in the boat with all the disciples, and Jesus comes, supernaturally walking across the water, and they all see him, and then Peter jumps out and he starts to walk in the water, but then a wave comes or something, and he gets distracted and he starts to use his human reasoning and logic, and so all of a sudden he's to start sinking, right? And Jesus has to reach down and pull him up out of the water. And I think, sometimes when we're called on with our faith to believe in something that's hard to believe, we have a tendency to let it jack up our faith. And so, like for me, I think of times when you think of giving, right? There have been a ton of times in my life where I remember kind of sitting down with my wife and looking at my finances and going, wow, I mean, we barely cover, everything that came in barely covers what has to go out. And yet here I want to give, and I want to give to the church, and I want to be able to do that. And I know that God wants me to do something like that as well. And so it's real easy for me to use human reasoning and let that jack up my faith and then look at that and say, you know what, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, if I give, then something's not going to, get paid over here. And so, yet the Bible promises, right? It says, give and it will be given to you. Luke 6 and verse 38. And you have this principle all throughout the Bible where if you give to God, then he gives back, and he does so many great things in return. And so I think one of the things that we have to remember is that sometimes human logic and everything just doesn't cut it, that we've got to trust God. And God is a God who is not bound by our human logic, right? And so that's one way that our faith can get jacked up, is when we start applying human reasoning to our supernatural, awesome, freaking awesome God, right? And then the second way is we can allow our feelings to overcome our faith. And this one in particular is something that I've dealt with several years, kind of working in businesses. There's a lot of times where no matter what kind of business you're in, it's kind of a dog eat dog world, right? Everybody wants to kind of move up. Everybody wants a bigger salary. Everybody wants a better position. And so you get in these moments, right, where there's an opportunity maybe to throw some shade on someone else, right? And so you throw a little shade on them. And what I mean by that is that maybe they just didn't do something right, or maybe they forgot to do something, or maybe they just left some, part out of their plan. And so rather than kind of rush to them and say, hey man, you should check this out because you should fix this before somebody sees it. It's, you take advantage of the situation and kind of go up to the boss man and kind of point out the error of the ways, or you just sit back and let them kind of fall or falter or do something because you're hoping that, hey, that's going to leave a space open for me and I get to try to be a leader. And so sometimes, unfortunately, probably a lot of times in business and in places, you are tempted right out of your feelings for wanting more, for being more, for doing more, and things to just sit back and not really help somebody out and take advantage of what the results of that will be. And so that's another way that our faith gets jacked up, right? So in the past, it was hard for me to look at those things and say, why should I help this guy? He didn't do good planning. He didn't do good things. But in the end, I found that each time when I bend over backwards to pull somebody inside and go, hey man, you forgot about this part. And if we walk into that meeting and you don't cover it, dude, you're going to get lambasted by the boss. And so you need to prepare for that. You got a couple hours and you get something in there or he's going to take notice of that. Every time I've bent over backwards to help somebody, I've built and established a relationship, and that has never done me wrong. And so that's one of the things that I think we need to learn, is that our faith can get jacked up and it can get overcome because of our feelings. So if I've got the wrong feelings and I've got the wrong motivations, then I'm going to act out and do things improper. So let's think of those two ways that we can get our faith jacked up. Number one, a situation goes against our human reasoning, and so we don't trust God, we trust our human reasoning, and then we don't do what we should. And then on the second one, we allow our feelings to overcome our faith. If we allow greed or covetousness, or just trying to want, you want to be better than everybody else, and you kind of covet what they want, and we can allow those feelings to make us act inappropriately and treat somebody unfairly, or not help them. And so both those things can jack up our faith. So today I want you to think about that. No matter what you're doing, if you're at home, if you're at work, you're about to go to work, when you do this, think of ways that you can act out and trust God and not use your human reasoning, and think about ways that you can override your feelings and do what's right. All right? Have a good day.